Hey, it's Central Valley Business. I'm your host, Steve Walling. My guest for this segment is Brad Huff. We're going to talk about a couple of different student things. One of them is called Student Nest. Another one is CSET, Review for Teachers and Math and Science. And the other is Lotus. So, Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
Got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's start with Student Nest. What is that exactly?
Okay, well, 15 years ago, I was introduced to the couple, Chander and Monica Joshi, who founded Student Nest.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very impressed with the technology because before touchpads were everywhere, his technology was that you could write on the screen. And so I figured I could be in Fresno and you could be in, I don't know, darkest Africa or something like that, as long as you had satellite connection, and I could help you with essentially anything.
Mm-hmm.
My background is math and science, and
Right.
so consequently, and initially the company was designed to help kids with math.
Mm-hmm.
And in the history of the company, we've now tutored over 60,000 students nationwide.
Got a few under your belt.
And my role was recruiting, screening, training, and then monitoring our tutors.
Uh-huh.
And we had about 150 people, stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, retired teachers, and so on, who worked for us. Because the tutoring was mostly evenings and weekends.
Okay.
Just very, very successful program. So that was how Student Nest got started. And then in the last couple of years, we've kind of branched out. One of these things is the digital audio music workshop, in that we became aware of, because we were tutoring kids who were in juvenile hall, incarcerated,
Right.
halfway houses, things like that. We saw that a lot of the academics really didn't motivate them.
Right.
But they were almost all of them listening to music. You know, they had their either loudspeakers going, or if they were allowed to have
Music
earbuds.
touches people in a way that regular academia doesn't necessarily
Exactly right.
make it.
Exactly right. So the thing was, so we decided, well, could we come up with a curriculum that would incorporate math, science, English language arts, history, technology, engineering, and so on. And so we found a member of the faculty at University High School who was interested in putting this thing together. And so it's called the Digital Audio Music Workshop.
Digital Audio Music Workshop.
Yes,
Okay.
right. And it's basically a course that starts with rhythm. And when you think about rhythm, you have whole notes and half notes and quarter notes. So there's math that's involved in that.
Right.
And so on. And then beating, your heart beats about once, it's like 60 times a minute that our heart beats. And so it's about 1 a second, I guess we would say. And unless you meet an attractive member of the opposite sex, in which case it
Might
speeds
go
up
up a bit, yeah.
Okay, and when we're sleeping, it slows down a little bit.
Right.
But in any event, and so the science of why 60 beats a minute is good. Marches are 120 beats per minute, so that's like 2 steps every heartbeat. So anyway, so it starts with that, and then from rhythm it goes on to melody, and what makes a melody and so on, and then from there it goes on to harmony. Okay, how you build chords and stuff like that. And then finally, the last component is then laying down tracks and actually creating music.
So one, we're creating an interest,
Right.
because it's music.
Right.
2, through that interest, we're able to introduce mathematic type principles.
Yep.
Some other obvious principles with that.
Right.
And then finally, we're giving them a skill that they can begin to use to put this into real-time practice.
And it's online. It's on a computer screen, but it's like a mixing board that you would see. I mean, so they can pull levers, up and down, and increase the volume. Right. Bring stuff in, fade stuff out, and one thing or another, electronically. So it's the technology, using the technology to do this. And then the ending of this is that to post these things in social media. And if the song is really hot, then the idea is they could then sell it. Spotify or
there's a lot,
Apple.
Beyond me, but there's a lot of stuff out there.
There are a lot of stuff out there. So the students could, if they compose something really catchy, really popular, then they could make some money on it. So
that's great.
Right. So that's kind of the whole package there. Moving on from that, and,
Okay.
and by the way, we've had some parents say, my kid is really interested. I mean, is this only for incarcerated youth? And the answer is absolutely not.
It's
Anybody.
available online to anybody.
Yeah, anybody who wants to do this. Hopefully, the address and phone numbers of the company are on the screen.
We're on the screen, right?
And so, consequently, you can just call in, and it's not expensive. That's one of the main things. Student Nest. Our goal here has been to make high-quality things available at a reasonable cost.
To the greatest amount of audience.
To the greatest amount of audience, exactly right.
That's great.
Now, the next thing I'd like to talk about is this CSET, which is California's state, examinations for teachers. So this is, teachers can, if you're an elementary teacher and you like science and you wanted to teach science at the middle
Right.
school or high school level, or if you're an elementary teacher and you wanted to teach something that you enjoy but you don't have the credential
Right.
to do that, you can prove that you have the content knowledge by
Okay.
taking a test.
Oh, all right.
And so at Fresno State, for again, about 15 years, I've been working with Dr. Carol Freibolen there. Initially, this was face-to-face. And we had people driving, they would, these are Saturdays. They
Right.
were flying from 8 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturdays. People would drive from, Los Angeles, Riverside County, Bay Area, and so on.
Basically all over the state.
All over the state. They would drive here, spend the night in a motel, and then come to our face-to-face sessions. Very successful. But then I was working with StudentNest.com, and so I started trying to encourage Dr. Boland that we could do this online, so people wouldn't have to drive, and they could just, take these courses
Right.
from the comfort of their home.
There you go.
And anyway, so she was hesitant, but then decided, let's give this a try.
Brad, how long have we been doing this?
Well, what, the online?
The online?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
And how's it working?
It's working really well.
Yeah.
Really well. I have 2 instructors who work with me, and like one day would be physics all day. That's me. We have another day would be biology all day, and that's Kelly Sullivan. And then I have Dr. David Tinker, who's a teacher in Fowler, and he does 4 hours of review of chemistry and then 3 hours of review of earth science.
Is this taught in real time or are these pre-recorded?
Yes.
Okay, so we got a little bit of both.
Now, what I mean to say here is that through the facilities of StudentNest.com, each one of these sessions is recorded.
Okay.
And so the idea is the teachers are online, it's live, and they can ask questions
Okay.
and so on, and interact with the presenter and one thing and another. But then at the end of the day, the whole day's worth of instruction has been recorded. And,
okay.
and then a link to that is sent out to the people so that they can then replay it.
And review.
And there's a bar across the bottom, so they don't have to start at 8 o'clock in the morning. If there's something that they knew happened about 10 o'clock, they can then fast forward.
They can focus in right to
focus
where they
in
need
on
to go.
on the parts that they need.
That's awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I'm not going to tell you, but it's been a few years. I was involved with various things that required ongoing educational stuff. And,
Right.
And trying to work through that sometimes.
Were you an engineer, continuing education?
No, I was a doctor of chiropractic.
Ah, okay,
And,
yeah. But you still have continuing education.
Every year.
Yep.
And you had to travel to various places
Yep.
depending on, one of my specialties was orthopedics and going down, to just a problem. But be able to sit back with a computer and get this information, and particularly for teachers, there's a great need for teachers.
Oh, yeah.
In a whole array of subjects, and being able to get this information or get the qualifications, I should say,
Right.
online that allows them to teach.
In particular, there's a huge shortage of math and science teachers.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm not saying that we're always looking for good English teachers and good history teachers and good vocational education teachers, music teachers, physical education teachers, all these kinds of teachers. But currently, districts are having to hire people who are not really, they may be qualified, but they don't have the credential.
Okay.
And so you can get an emergency kind of thing because
Right.
they need to get a
But
hot
does
rod in the
does
classroom.
that make a difference in the pay scale?
Probably. I
Yeah.
would think so. I would think
So
so.
if you got the credentials, might be a little bit better.
And it was 15 years ago that Dr. Carol Freibolen at Fresno State became aware of the fact that there was going to be a shortage, particularly here in the Central Valley.
Yeah.
And so she wrote this grant to the Chancellor's Office of the California State University system saying, give me some money so that we can do this. I left the best part for last.
Okay.
Because of this grant, these workshops are free.
Really?
Free.
Now that's you just lit me up real big there, Brad. That's great.
I mean, over the course, starting about 15 years ago, we probably have helped between 300 and 400 teachers get their credentials.
And that through that, you're talking about thousands of students.
Oh yeah, thousands of students.
That's great.
And now that we're online, I mean, now we have people from all over the state. I mean, from basically the Oregon border to
I was going to say Humboldt to
San Diego.
El Segundo or whatever.
Yeah, exactly
cool.
right.
Now the third thing that we've got to talk about, moving right along, is LOTUS, and LOTUS is an acronym for
Learning Online Through Universal Systems.
Okay, and what are we talking about with
this? The initial idea was, could we come up with something that would make live tutors unnecessary? Now, from my point of view, working with a live person who figures out why I'm having trouble on one thing or another, and I get a personal relationship with that student and so on, that's important. But in today's world of technology, it's called adaptive technology.
Right.
And the way this works is, so who is the target demographic here? Well, basically it's the whole spectrum, but particularly if a parent or grandparent has a child who struggles in math or science or something like that, then this would be perfect for them. Excuse me. If you have a child who's bored, because he or she, they do a lot of reading and one thing or another, and you want to stimulate their learning and so on, and their achievement, this would be for them as well. So this is how it works. First of all, it works on any mobile device. It can be a smartphone, it can be a tablet, a laptop, a computer, anything that connects to the internet, this will work on. Now, this is not free.
Okay.
But it's not terribly expensive. I'm not prepared to tell you what it will cost because it would depend on some other factors. But in any event, bottom line is, so the child has a device in his hand, and say,
which most of them do nowadays.
Most of them do, right? And so suppose that the parent is saying, okay, you didn't do well in math this last year, so I signed up for this LOTUS, and so the parent probably breathing down the child's neck, and so the child logs in and so on, and then he gets a question. So if he's say in 7th grade, was in 7th grade last year, then he enters some information, and so he would get a question appropriate for a student, math question in 7th grade.
Right.
If he gets it right, he'll get a harder one.
Okay.
If he gets that right, he'll get a harder one. Okay? And so the computer has this huge bank of these questions and so on, and it will keep asking harder questions until the student misses. Then it will ask it back just off a little bit, okay, gets that one right, and so on. Or if the student is missing to right off the bat, then it would ask easier questions. So very quickly, it's in a shorter period of time probably than it took me to describe it, the computer will know, okay, this is where the student is.
Okay.
Now the computer will start giving instruction, lessons. Okay, it will explain things.
So the initial interaction is assessing the student. Where are they at in the learning process?
Right.
And it will help zero in on that. So you're not taking some young person and giving them stuff that they can't interact with, don't understand, don't relate to, and their attention goes out the window.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if a kid is in 7th grade and I hand him a 7th grade math book and he's working at the 4th grade level, I'm dead in the water.
You are.
But the computer doesn't say, oh, this is 4th grade stuff. It just asks questions, or this is 11th grade stuff. It just asks questions until it homes in on where the student is, where their knowledge level is, and then it will start providing instruction. And here's something to do. Then a question, instruction, a question, and after they've completed a certain amount of work, then there'll be a test, an assessment, and if they do well, then it moves on to more difficult stuff.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and from my point of view, also, so for an individual, for one student, a child, a grandchild, something like that, this is perfect. Okay.
Well, not only that, Brad, but back in the day where if you were struggling as a student, you had to go to summer school, which meant the family vacations, family summer plans were tied to the fact that nobody's leaving town.
Right.
With this type of thing, as long as you've got your device, you could pretty much go anywhere, couldn't you?
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's
exactly
awesome.
right. Exactly right. And then the other feature of this for a school district,
Uh-huh.
okay, or let's suppose I'm a teacher and I have 30 students in my class,
Right.
okay, I have 4, you included, who are really bright, and you know,
Well, thank you.
I'm trying to figure out how to keep you
Interested
challenged,
and motivated.
right,
Yeah.
and motivated. So if you have this Lotus, you're off to the races. I mean, you know, you're
I'm not tied to what the
but
majority
now
of
I'll
the
come
class
by and
do.
I'll pat you on the shoulder and I'll say, Steve, good job. You know, you're way ahead. Keep at it.
Right.
Okay. So
So that works real time with
Yes.
with school teaching also.
right, and I know where you are because as the teacher, I can track every student in the class. I can see what you're doing. Okay.
What a great tool for teachers.
Oh yeah, and then say the majority of the students, say 20 kids in the class, are they're on track, and I can see, okay, he's working, she's working, she's working. I mean, they're where they ought to be, and so on.
Right.
And I can still go by and say, you know, good job, one thing. But to me,
Uh-huh.
the key here is the kids who are struggling,
Yeah.
because I can see that poor Brad Huff here, you know, he's way down here, and he needs personal attention.
But you know, Brett, what a lot of people don't realize is, you know, obviously when we talk about kids struggling, we're talking about the lower end of the scale.
Right.
But if a kid has got it and they're bored in the classroom,
Oh yeah.
they're struggling also.
Yeah.
So this allows you to kind of really zero in and focus at the level of the student,
Yep.
which, you know, on a low end allows them to grow in their understanding of whatever the subject matter
Exactly.
is, which builds confidence.
Yep.
And at the upper end, you know, it keeps them challenged and interested
Right.
instead of losing them to daydreaming or whatever.
Right, exactly, or
What a great
playing
program.
Fortnite or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, so the main thing here is that you know, as a teacher, I would love to have this because, as I said, you know, I can see where every student is, and then if the students can take these things home, they can continue to work at home.
Right.
And then some people say, well, some of these, you know, children whose parents are not as well off, you know, they don't have the internet at home. They can still work offline at home. When they come back to school the next day, then it uploads and the computer knows what they did.
Well, that's great.
So it's
Covers a lot of bases. Now, what in the Lotus program, what subjects are we talking about?
everything. Science, math,
Really?
history, English language arts.
Sign me up.
Yeah, well,
Sounds good.
like the 4 core areas.
Yeah, that's great.
And we got some really good people who wrote the exercises and the questions and one thing and another. So I recruited a couple people to do this, and I mean,
Yeah.
and the thing is, everything is based on the California standards that are. I mean, you know, so it's not we're just going off and doing some wild and crazy
Right.
stuff, but rather everything is tied to what the child needs to know for their public school situation, and even students who are in private schools. I mean, they're not required to follow the standards, but math is math, science is science.
Pretty much,
and
yeah.
so on. So English is English. So anyway, so I mean, I'm really excited about the fact that this company that I've been involved with for a decade and a half.
How do I find out about it, Brett?
How do you find out about it?
Yeah.
Listen to this program.
And we've got
Yeah.
contact information on the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Once again, it's
Ah,
what do we got?
yeah.
CNET.
So you can, yeah.
Okay.
It's
Student Nest, the nesting success.
yep.
Okay.
Monica Joshi. It's a minority woman-owned business, which
Okay.
is important. And then the address is 2121 Merced Street. So if you happen to be in downtown Fresno, you can walk into the office. Although
so you've
I
got,
recommend making a phone call and making
And-
an appointment in advance.
and the office phone number is
Locally-
559-486-1251,
or toll free.
888-295-3916.
You got it.
Awesome. If you are a parent, a grandparent, if you are a teacher, there's some great resources here. And you know, there's not a kid in school that doesn't need something at some point in time. So I highly recommend you get a hold of it.
Thank
Brad,
you.
thanks again for being on the
Yeah.
show.
Well, thank you very much.
We'll talk more about it later.
Right.
And I'll see you when we come back.